to this week's episode of the Caged In podcast. It is, of course, the 6th of May 2020, which marks that just 2 days ago we got the fantastic news that Nick Cage will be playing Joe Exotic in the CBS 8-part series based on the life of the Tiger King. And I, for one, ecstatic about this. So it's genuinely a casting choice that I didn't even think about at all. When it was first bounded about that there was potential that this would be turned into some kind of drama comedy adaptation, I thought, wow, it's obviously got to be someone else. David Spade, I know, has been bounded around a lot, as has Danny McBride, but to think of Nicolas Cage as this role as Joe Exotic is just something that I don't think we've ever seen him do. That kind of character. Just for one, him even playing a queer character is something completely out of the box for Nicolas Cage, and I personally think it comes on the back of this kind of resurgence he's having by taking interesting roles and doing interesting things with them. Even if we look back just a couple of years to Panos Cosmatos' Mandy, or even like some of the work he has coming up. So Willy's Wonderland, that's scheduled to come out this year. God knows whether we'll actually be able to see it. Or even Prisoners of Ghostland, which, is going to be directed by Japanese director Sion Sono. That just looks like it's going to be crazy. And Nick Cage himself said that's one of the craziest things he's ever done, which is a big thing coming from him. So this role as Joe Exotic could be really interesting. I've already seen online there's a lot of deriders, a lot of haters on the subject. As I've always said on this podcast, I never went into this as kind of some kind of Nick Cage fanatic. I've been won over by the guy, and I will find it really interesting to see what he does with the role. And it's going to mean some longevity in this podcast. So that's a whole new territory we will be delving into, in the fact that it will be his first TV role, which is a fascinating landscape anyway at the moment. It seems TV, there's so much interesting stuff going on, whether that's Succession or even in the comedy world, mentioning Danny McBride. So The Righteous Gemstones, which I think if it went for that kind of tone could be done really well. And it's my initial thoughts when this was kind of being banded around that this was a potential series. I thought the kind of Jodie Hill, David Gordon Green, Danny McBride trio could do something really interesting with that property. But obviously this is CBS and is going to be by the showrunner of American Vandal, the Netflix series. So and it's different to the Kate McKinnon scripted one that's going to be based on the Wondery podcast series. So I'm just gonna, until we hear something new, I guess we're all just gonna have to keep a lid on it and just see what happens. But I wanted to say I'm really excited, and if you're excited, or even if you hate the prospect of Nick Cage playing Joe Exotic, please drop me a line on social media. So it's at Caged In Pod, wherever you find that. Facebook, Twitter, or cagedinpod@gmail.com. Just type me a little email and we'll have a little chat about what you guys think. I'd love to be able to hear it, and I'd love to just have the conversation with you guys. So today we will be looking at Season of the Witch, and I had the absolute pleasure of being joined by Joe Gardner of Tonight with Bob and Joe, which is a fantastic podcast. If you guys haven't listened, you can find those guys wherever. They've actually just relaunched a new series called The Infinite Pub Crawl, which you can watch on YouTube. And it's great. It's a great concept. They had this idea that they wanted to drink in every pub in Brighton town. Obviously, that has been put on hold for the time being with everything that's going on, and there may not be all the pubs that they once wanted to drink in available once this pandemic is over. But they have got 12 episodes in the bag already, and they will be releasing those. And I recommend them wholeheartedly. They're fantastic guys. They've been ever so supportive of this podcast since we met, and both of them have guested on the podcast Bob especially as guest on the podcast. But today I have the absolute pleasure of having Joe on the podcast. But before we see what this slice of mystery magic has to offer, and a realm that Cage in this time period seems to be dipping around in. Obviously, last week we had Sorcerer's Apprentice, where Nick Cage played the titular sorcerer. This week, however, he plays a crusader in Season of the Witch. But before you hear me and Joe talk about it, obviously I have to look to some magic of my own. I have to look at the Anagram Hunter and see what he has to say about this movie, and does it predict whether this will be a good movie or a bad movie. So the anagram this week for Season of the Witch is The Fast Show on Ice. I believe this is a reference to the popular British sketch comedy show from the 1990s, starring Paul Whitehouse, Charlie Higson, Simon Day, Mark Williams, John Thomas, Arabella Weir, and Caroline Ahern. Is this a mystic vision of what Season of the Witch will behold upon us? From looking at the DVD case and the poster, there's a lot of fire, so I don't know whether Cage will be on ice, and I'm not sure if we'll get to see Arabella Weir or Paul Whitehouse at all, but there's only one way to find out, and that's to watch the movie. And I will obviously tell you at the end whether Fast Show on Ice gives us any indication whether this will be a good thing, or whether it would have been much better to watch Fast Show on Ice as opposed to Season of the Witch. As always, you can check out what the Anagram Hunter is doing up on Twitter, and that is Thomas_W_Hunter for all of your anagram needs. So, with that out of the way, it's time to do one thing, and that's to get raging with Cage. Two unlikely partners leave their posts, soon to be punished unless they do what a shady organisation tell them to do, tasked with the transportation of a misunderstood girl from one town to another. Mishaps ensue. No, I'm not talking about a number of 80s buddy cop movies. Of course, I'm talking about the Crusade set, horror-inflected action-adventure movie, Season of the Witch. Cage is back in the realms of magic after Sorcerer's Apprentice from the same year. He's not the only one. I have the returning guest, and tonight with host Joe Gardner with me. How are you, Joe?
That was fantastic, man. That was great. I'm good, man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm holding up all right. I'm doing a lot of record. Yeah, doing a lot of this. Doing a lot of that.
Yeah, you should be. I listened to your last one today, I think. Did you put that out today?
Yeah, I put out 2 this week. So
it was the one today.
I've recently started, for those of you who might not have listened, a new series of interviews. So every maybe fortnight, I'll release a little interview special with weird and wonderful people I've found who have some link to Nicolas Cage and stuff.
Yeah, I love it. I really love that guy. He's a cool guy.
So, Joe, before we get on with Season of the Witch,
that's it, Season of the Witch, man. Right.
I should have maybe asked you this before, because you are, as I said, you are a returning guest. But are you a Nicolas Cage fan?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I am a Nicolas Cage fan, but I don't know. Obviously, talking to you, you're the Nick Cage, you're the enthusiast. I don't know much about him, and I don't even know if I've seen many of his movies. Really, the ones that come to mind are ones I've watched with you, and or because you've told me to. And apart from Wild at Heart, I've seen Wild at Heart. That's awesome. What else? I love him, man.
Wild at Heart is very much like a staple for especially gentlemen of our age and of our demographic of quote unquote trying to be cool guys.
Yeah.
You've got the trifecta of David Lynch and Nicolas Cage doing an Elvis impersonation for
what's not to love, right? So, I really do like Nicolas Cage, but I don't know much about him. And also, the more movies I watch of his, it's never with him. It's never a problem with him or his acting particularly, but it is usually a problem in where he is, what he's doing. Why is he doing this movie? I thought he was like, in my mind, I think Cage is just like right at the top there, like proper A-list, like super celeb actor of our generation. And then you see him in like utter trash that makes no sense. But I'm fascinated with it.
Well, this is one of them. And like looking at the cast and like just looking at the premise of this, it should be gold. Do you know what I mean? Like,
man, that's what I thought. I thought it was going to be really good. I couldn't believe it was in it. Yeah, they kept popping up.
Apart from like Nicolas Cage, we have Ron Perlman, Stephen Graham, Stephen Campbell Moore, who plays the I think the monk with the fantastic haircut.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's great. Yeah.
We have like Claire Foy in her first ever performance as the witch of the title, and
yeah, we'll get into that.
And Robert Sheehan, who obviously like made his name on British TV as
I know him as Misfits guy, the Misfits guy.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got a little story maybe about him, not a story, but I think my brother went on a stag do, and that actor was on the stag do with them.
Fantastic.
And apparently he was like a complete asset to stag material. He was a total lunatic, apparently, which is, I'm sure, what you're after on a stag.
That is fantastic. I would love to have heard. Like, I'd love to hear if there's any like stories of him and Cage on the set of this or something. But from the performance we get from Nicolas Cage, I don't know. He seems very toned down from the Nick Cage that I know. Especially,
I was gonna, that's it. It's basically he's not doing anything. He's really quiet Cage, and you're like, what's going on with this?
So yeah, to like start from the beginning, really. Like, well, not just break it down beat for beat, but like, first of all, where this is set. So it's like in the, it's like 1235 AD, like around that time, during the height of the Crusades.
Yeah.
But the thing that I found baffling about this film, like to start off with, is just like it doesn't know what kind of film it wants to be. Like, we have these fight sequences, like battle sequences of the Crusades that almost look like the Immortals or like 300, this kind of glossy CGI landscapes are just like a multitude of like it's got this gladiator thing going on. I mean, it's certainly no gladiator, but it's got these big groups of people fighting. I mean, you're certainly right in it not knowing what it does. I noticed that in the first, like in that first bit where it starts off and you've kind of got Cage and Perlman and they're sort of like chummy knights. They're like obviously really good, obviously massive, and they're like best mates, and they're like talking like, you know, whoever kills the least gets the drinks tonight. You know, see that? Yeah, I think the first thing that like really stood out to me was Ron Perlman has like a perfect haircut, and Nick Cage
it's beautiful. It's beautiful haircut, man.
It's grown out, but it's bleached. It's clearly like bleached.
Golden blonde locks. Like, do you know where they are in the Crusades? Because I don't know if I recognise the names of the places, or if they're like ye olde names, and it's just fictitious, sort of like, as they would call I don't know, barbarian lands or whatever Crusaders thought they were up to. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I guess they are real, like they would have been real places, or I don't know if they are completely fictitious. Like,
yeah,
a lot of them, like, not to insult any other cultures, but just look like a mash of like too many consonants next to each other. And I was like, that doesn't even look like it looks like someone's led to a keyboard.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing. So I don't know. I didn't recognise any of those names. Yeah, but yeah, and then it cuts to they're having this huge brawl, and they're like chopping people up, and it's not even good chopping. So it's not like Braveheart or anything like that. It's no good. And then it cuts to the pub, and they're just wildly laughing with prostitutes all over them for just a second.
Yeah, and then back again, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like I was cracking up immediately.
We see them fighting through the seasons, don't we? Like, like just kind of, and like the years rolling by, but it just kind of their interaction together, just like I said in the intro, like harkened me back to like a kind of like Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy in like 48 Hours, or Riggs and Murtaugh in Lethal Weapon, and it's
I
like
totally get what you're saying. Yeah.
it's like it doesn't quite make sense. Like some people are very much speaking in the dialect of the time, like "Hello, sir. Yes, ye come forward now," and then there's these two kind of going like, "Oh, hey."
Yeah, he goes to him. He goes, "You ever get that feeling that God has too many enemies?" Whilst they're fighting, because they have to kill everyone. And then he's like, I can't remember what he says, actually. Nick replies, he's like, being his friend ain't too easy either. Yeah, you're like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, so we've got this historical backdrop, then we've got this hard-boiled cop like dialogue that just doesn't meld together, and then this like plot that is something straight out of like, I don't know, it felt to me very much like an episode of something. This is
completely bizarre, man.
A very thin plot for a film. It is travel from point A to point B
with a witch. So they leave, don't they? These two leave. I can't remember how your show works. Should I not give too much up, or it doesn't really matter?
We could spoil it out. Yeah, we could. Yeah.
So these guys leave the Crusades because they're sick of killing the people that the Crusades have to kill. Nick and Perlman are like, they throw that to the wind, but then they get caught for being people that have left the Crusades, and then they get charged to take this witch that's brought on, which I thought, a plague. It's all about a plague that's plaguing the place, and they think it's the witch, so they take the witch from here to some other monks, and they have to do it, otherwise they're going to be killed for treason or whatever, right?
Well, I got excited as well, because whilst looking at the cast list for this before watching it, I was like, oh, Christopher Lee's in it.
I don't even know if I can remember him in it.
Well, Christopher Lee is the cardinal who sends them on their mission.
To be fair, that bit isn't that bad. I mean, he had some brilliant makeup on as well. That was grim.
That's the thing. You've got Christopher Lee. He's like literally laying down. Like I get he was old at this point, but he's laying down under a 2-ton of prosthetics, and it's like it's a blink and you'll miss it performance. Like
I didn't even know it was him. Man, and also what's weird about that, I think they had like all these, it's very like occultish, like, so it goes from being sort of schlocky, and then all of a sudden there's like all of these masks, like those dick nose mask guys, like the monks around, and you're like, whoa, is this going to get interesting? And it doesn't. You're like, oh no, they took them all off. They take all their masks off.
And then it kind strange. Of like when they decide they're going to take the quest because they'll get pardons, then it like does another left turn into like the Lord of the Rings almost, where they're kind of like getting the gang together to go on their merry way.
Yeah, you son of a bitch! Like
and it's like that's when we're introduced to Stephen Graham's character, like a fantastic actor, like in his own right. Mm-hmm. But in this, massively underutilized and just kind of like.
Yeah, you could put that underutilized all the way through, in fact, because Cage, it gets to about an hour in or something, and you realise that Cage hasn't done anything Cage-like, and you think, what kind of director doesn't use the Cage, man? Like, use him.
Well, what's really interesting about that as well is this is directed by Dominic Senna, who actually directed Gone in 60 Seconds. So he has had the good pleasure of working with Nick Cage before and knows the capabilities of the man. Yet he just kind of like gets him to do nothing. The only thing I can think to that point is this film underwent serious reshoots.
Oh man, you can it's all over it. You can tell not only reshoots, but there must have once been a script that was nothing like this one, and then loads of people just got on the bandwagon for maybe a couple of weeks of writing and went, yeah, let's just add that in, and let's just change that. And because essentially it's a witch film, you're led to believe that this girl may or may not be a witch, and pretty quickly they show you that she is, supernatural in some sense, and you're like, okay, this might be quite cool, and it's all about the witch hunts and stuff like that, which I think is, a cool topic. I mean, it's actually what's it called? It's like the Wiccas, like a Wiccan, the
Yeah.
witches. Yeah, it's the Wiccan May Day today.
Oh yeah,
I know
course.
it's May Day, but they call it Beltan or something, like Happy Beltan from the pagans of the country, which is great. And then, I mean, I don't know how quickly you want to get into it, because basically nothing happens until the end.
Well, let's get into that, because the end, I very much felt like I was watching an episode of Buffy.
I couldn't believe what happened. I couldn't believe what was going on. Like, there we are with we're there with the witches, and some adventure type things have happened. Nothing at all. Nick hasn't basically done anything. I think he shouted once for a second, and I thought, oh God, no, and then there's nothing. But yeah, and then all of a sudden you find out she's not actually even a witch, right? That's what happens.
Yeah, it was a possession story all along, because along their way as well, all it is just a poor excuse to kind of do a, like, picking off each kind of, like, lesser known character. One of them, I had no idea who he was until I was like, oh, wait a second, this guy's talking a lot about his daughter. Why are they building him up? Why are they building up this character? Oh, it's because he's going to die.
Yeah.
He wasn't established in the first half hour of the film. All of a sudden, they're giving him, like, loads of backstory really quickly, and it's just an excuse for the demon in the guise of this woman to.
That's when I really knew it was that's when I really knew it was a bad film. When if they'd just gone along with the witch aspect, they could have really at least had a film about witches, about witch hunting. I mean, what I was going to say is, like, it turns out that it's an exorcism. They need to do an exorcism because it's actually not a witch. At one point, before you find out that it's not a witch, really, she turns into what looks like a bat, and you think, is she a fucking vampire? What is going on in this fucking film? Right, it's just they're throwing holy water over everyone, and you're like, I don't know what's going on here. And then, I mean, what would you have done if you had Nicolas Cage and there was, like, they said, let's make a witch film. Let's make a film about the witch hunts with Nicolas Cage. There's so many great ideas you could go with that.
Well, yeah. Well, you look at Robert Eggers' The Witch,
right?
Which is, like, a really, like, done in period dialect, very, like, austere and, like, dark film about, like, witches living in the woods and, like, corrupting people and stuff like that. Like, very, like, on the
that sounds
on the border of art house. Yeah. Whereas this is just kind of, I don't know. It's like a bad computer game by the end of it, right? Like we get these CGI sequences. We get these possessed monks, like, coming at them, and there's this terrible CGI. Like, I don't know. It's not like a puff of smoke, but they realize very quickly. And I think Ron Perlman, like, says, like, you gotta take off the head, and, like,
oh my God, yeah, he's like, they're like cockroaches.
Yeah, again, like, hard-boiled New York detective speech. Not.
Yeah, it's difficult, man, because it really that is what lets it down the most. Whoever's messed with it's like, producer came in halfway and said, we don't like any of this. Right, he's going to be a demon now. We're getting the Buffy guy to make him make a demon out of it. And there's some demon wolves at some point. That's super Buffy. I know what you mean by that. Like, their faces turn exactly into those Buffy vampires. You know how they used to do that? Yeah.
Well, there's that moment as well. The like, demon, when they get to Severac, looks exactly the same, but in grey, as Tim Curry in the like in the Ridley Scott film Legend with Tom Cruise. If you've ever seen that, where he plays Lucifer.
No, I haven't.
But in a horrible grey, but worse. And Legend came out in 1980.
Yeah, man, I don't know. But Cage, like many films that Cage is in, at least that I've seen, is somehow carrying the film somehow still. I'm not sure how. He's not really doing much, but he's still keeping it going. And maybe even it's strange plot twists and awful decisions, that somehow kept me watching it as well. I don't know why. I thought, oh, what are they actually going to do now?
Well, I almost feel bad for Cage because I had a look into it, and he learned to ride a horse and did like extensive training in like sword fighting for this film, and it's
Great.
like, wow, like you did all of that for this?
Yeah, gutted on the Misfits dude as well, because he's in a film with Cage, and then, it's got a 5. What has it got on IMDb? Do you know? It's like
5.4, yeah.
Yeah, that's too kind. That's too kind.
Rotten Tomatoes 11%. So like,
Yeah.
Like, again, something that this is supposed to be inspired by is Ingmar Bergman's The Seventh Seal. I really think, like, if that were the case and they were kind of going for like a Bergman aesthetic and that kind of filmmaking, this could have been a really interesting. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
All the pieces are there in the fact that the location, the setting, the subject matter. It's really interesting stuff. Like looking at like the poster for this and kind of like going, oh, Cage in a film about like witches in like the Crusades. It's like
exactly.
That's pretty fucking cool. Like it's a bit of a departure. We've never really seen him do anything like period.
And
like,
what's
up until this point, like
it's about it's kind of they kill once they've got rid of this. They think that this witch is bringing on. It's not a witch, is it? It's a demon. That it's bringing on the plague, right? So it's about Nick Cage having to save the world from the plague, which we need him now in real life. We need him out there doing his cagey stuff. But it's a terrible ending. I wouldn't watch it again, but I would actually urge people to watch it, because if you're one of those people that likes to watch sort of like those kind of crappy films that make you laugh, they're so bad, I think it can be put into that category. It's not bad enough to just be like total trash, but it's actually so bad it's pretty funny. I was lolling, man. Like for sure, I was actually laughing out loud at some of the most serious points of the film.
Oh, definitely. I've actually got a clip of Nick himself talking about the story of this film. Here we go. Let's have let's have it from the horse's mouth. What he kind of thinks is going on.
The adventure is that he has to deliver this alleged witch, this young girl played by Claire Foy, to the Abbey of Severac for an exorcism.
He looks so depressed.
And the church wants him to do that one last time, even though he has renounced his connection with the church. And he does it because he doesn't want them to do what he thinks they're going to do, which is give her an unfair trial and kill her anyway. And along the way, things begin to happen. Spooky things. She starts to become something other than what he initially believed, which is that she was just a puppet to be slain to help calm people's fears about the plague. But it turns out that she has some other power that he really didn't count on.
So that,
wow.
He sounds as confused as we do.
He sounds super confused about that. Like that. How did anyone get that in an elevator pitch or whatever? How did that film get made? That it must be, like you say, it got the green light, and then all of a sudden, just loads of people came in and just messed around with it, or they did loads of reshoots, and because it's completely bizarre.
Well, the reshoots were actually done by Brett Ratner, of all people, as well. Like someone who's got like some kind of like pedigree in filmmaking. Like he's again someone who worked with Cage, and he brought in his own like editor to kind of from the sound of it, he brought in his editor to kind of salvage what they had, which is never a good sign. It sounds like this, like it's a real shame. Like this film it came out in January 2011, and like January is notoriously known as like kind of being like a bit of a dumping ground for a lot of
Right. Yeah.
a lot of trash, really. Do you know what I mean? You either have
Yeah.
the like Oscar fare in the UK, like the kind of stuff like that's gonna be nominated for the Oscars, or you kind of have stuff that they want to just get rid of. Like we spent all this money making it, let's just release it. Like it will get lost in the fray, against all these, like serious awards contenders.
Shame, man. Shame. I mean, it's got a good thing in that if they were, I mean, actually, no, it's from the very beginning, it sort of ruins the witchiness about it immediately, because that Buffiness you're talking about comes out in the very first scene before you see Cage. And then by the end of it, because I mean, like what I keep thinking about with this film is how good a different witch film, like, even just something as popular as like the Salem Trials or something like that, how good that would be with Cage in it. Or any ideas. I mean, any idea apart from that idea, it would be better. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Well, like
he wants,
he said himself, like he was attracted to the project because he saw it as a tribute to the movies of Roger Corman from like the 1960s, like a lot of stuff that would have starred Christopher Lee and Vincent Price. And then when he saw that Christopher Lee was going to be in the movie, he was like, well, I'm sold.
Yeah. I mean, you would be, wouldn't you? Like, you would be. You'd think, man, this is going to be brilliant. Which, of course, there's a connection between those two, then, isn't there? With the Wicker Man, right? Is that Christopher Lee? There is, isn't it?
The Wicker, he's in the original Wicker Man.
Yeah, of course.
Then, and then Nicolas Cage is in the remake of the Wicker Man. So I guess that this is the chance that they came full circle.
So you can see why he wanted at least to like be in the same movies as him, man. Yeah, that is. You know, I ended up looking into witches generally.
Perfect. Yeah, I want to hear your.
I found some crazy stuff about witches, man. I mean, firstly, because my other half is from Exeter, and that's where the last witch was hung in England.
Wow.
They've got a, like a memorial to her there. Yeah, she was called Alice, which is the same name as my other half. So she really loves that. Yeah, but that was quite a long time ago, man. So, which is good. But then I found out that a woman was arrested in 1944 in the UK and jailed for 9 months under sort of witchcraft, basically. She was a woman that did seances. And it's an incredible story. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, she would do seances for people. And I think she did she was a spirit medium, and she did a seance for this couple whose son was in the Navy, and he was on a boat. And she told them that the boat had sunk and that the guy was dead. And then when the military found out about it, they arrested her because that boat had in fact sunk, but they hadn't released the documents because they wanted to keep morale up. So they thought she was like a spy, and they arrested her for 9 months. For witchcraft.
That is
I know.
That is, see, that story you just told me is better than the plot of this film.
Without a doubt, that's what I mean. Yeah, her name was Helen Duncan. Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. Cage could have played the father of the couple. That also, I don't know.
Well, yeah, if you had turned round to me and said that, like, and then it turned out that actually she was possessed by a demon, fuck off! Like, which is very much how I felt about it. Like, when it got to that point, I was like, you're having your cake and eating it, because this is either you're just adding to the thing of like do you know what I mean? That she is a witch, so then all the suspicions are right anyway.
Yeah,
and then,
man.
Or it's you get to the end and she's not a witch, and it's quite I don't know, it's like a deflated balloon by the end of it. Whereas like they kind of get to have their cake and eat it. So like we get the paranormal, we don't get the we don't get the disappointing ending by it just her. But like she is a witch.
Yeah.
here's this. We need a twist. Oh, it's this fucking blob of CGI like bat thing, and even the way they like kill, like the way to defeat it is terrible. Like I felt like I was,
Yeah.
like yeah.
Well, at the same point, so that bit at the end. So you've got the witch who now isn't a witch, and she just flew off like a bat. Is she a vampire? And then a few minutes later, you've got this big, like Buffy CGI devil thing with wings, and then he somehow possesses all of the dead monks with the plague. So then you've got zombie dead monks with the plague running around, like stabbing people with crucifixes. I mean, it's just with Cage dressed up like a crusader with his sword training, thinking, how did I get here? I mean, you got to wonder, man. He really is such an interesting dude. I mean,
well, and his fate in this, like, what? That's the one thing I didn't see happening is both, like, first of all, like Ron Perlman gets hugged by the demon, and burns to ashes in a matter of minutes.
Yeah, and then go on, yeah.
And then, like, the way to defeat this demon is to just recite a passage from the Bible. It's so lukewarm, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Cage, after seeing the demon hug Perlman to death, Cage essentially is trying to do the same thing back to the demon. He's like hugging him while Misfits guy reads.
Well, it's like a pretty cool moment when he like stabs the demon in both wings with like these kind of crucifix looking knives.
Yeah, that's the bit.
All of a sudden he's become a ninja turtle and he's got these kind of two knives in his back pockets.
Yeah, proper Leonardo.
And then it's like, holding the demon up against the wall whilst he recites a Bible passage, and it's just like, come on. Do you know what I mean? It's just a bit like, and because it just like, I think it is the CGI and it is the level of like a PlayStation 4 game. Like, so it just kept reminding me of like that, like this generation of like consoles. And I was just like,
mm-hmm. And then he dies, right? Then he dies too.
But like, to the point I was going to make was like, if you'd got to the end of a game and that is how you had to defeat the last boss, it's quite disappointing, right?
I would say that would sum up the film in some ways, but then I suppose in other ways, I did think it looked bad, but I didn't see the trailer, which I just looked at the what's it called, the cover. I looked at the cover on Google. I just Googled it and saw the cover and thought it's going to be disappointing. I sort of felt like, and also I didn't even hear the song "Season of the Witch" at all in the movie. But I thought I found a Lana Del Rey cover of that song.
Wow.
Have you heard? Yeah, I think Lana Del Rey covered "Season of the Witch" by Donovan for that movie, because I found her song, but then in the movie it's not even there, and that would have at least made it a bit better to hear the song and sung by Lana Del Rey. It is quite a good cover.
She sung it for this movie.
I had that idea, but then it can't. Maybe she didn't. Of course, 2011 was she around then? I don't know.
I'm not sure. Well, that would have been fantastic if she did. Cause...
yeah. Well, if not, she's got a cover of it, so maybe that's why she did it after. That makes sense. But at least could have used Donovan's cover. It could have just been a biopic of Donovan with Cage playing Donovan. That would be better. Season of the Witch. I was going to do a cover for you, Season of the Witch, but I learned it, and then I was like, it's just a weird song, and I didn't get around to it. But I did write half a cover of a different song with Nicolas Cage lyrics for you, which I'll either send to you or I might play for a bit.
Perfect. Yeah. That is exactly what we want. With this film, like you've already said, you would recommend this, right? You would.
I would say watch it, but it's super bad, and only if you've got other things to do, like the washing up, just do that instead.
Yeah, I would say unless you're a Cage completist like myself, don't bother. I've actually got a quote from a gentleman on IMDb.
Right.
His name jumped out to me. His name is Dick Steele.
Right.
And this is his closing point on the film. Under Dominic Senna's vision, you'd know what to expect when you scan through the resume, being responsible for the flicks like Whiteout, Swordfish, and yet another Nicolas Cage starer in Gone in 60 Seconds. They're no more than guilt trips with potential not lived up to. So don't expect a classic or a masterpiece, but best, entertainment that will struggle to satisfy the jaded audience.
Fucking, I mean, Jesus, that guy is jaded. He was a dick then, and he's a dick still.
This is a small quote from a lengthy review of the film.
Yeah.
Kind of like telling the general public basically that we're all like, we expect too much from this film, and I don't think we do.
I don't think so.
From watching it, like, it's like I totally understand films are hard to make, and obviously there's scripts never turn out as the way that they're
Sure.
supposed to be, but at the same time, this is vastly disappointing considering the caliber of actors we have on screen and the subject matter we have. Just kind of like that sandbox to play in is fantastic. Like,
Yeah, you're right. It is hugely disappointing.
So we've talked about scores, Joe, and there's a way that I actually score Nicolas Cage films.
Okay.
Which is either three point system scoring. Totally of my making. It doesn't add up to numbers, and I don't even know what it tells me yet. I'm just kind of answering these questions as I go along, and then I guess at the end I'll figure out like maybe like a moment of divine intervention. Maybe God will speak to me and send me on a crusade to do what I need to do. But it's just three simple questions, and the first one is: does Nick have bad hair in this movie?
Well, that is actually quite tough because I'd never seen his hair like that. Yes, he has bad hair. Yeah. I liked it though.
Yeah, well, from watching The Sorcerer's Apprentice, which like was his film previous to this,
Right.
Well, like, again, this was supposed to come out in 2010, so like it could have been the one that this could have been shot before that. He has very similar hair. And yeah, my second point that I go by is: does Nicolas Cage have a crazy voice at all? Obviously, we think of like he is known for doing these, like just voices that almost come from another planet.
The answer is no. He doesn't have a crazy Nick voice in it.
It's disappointing, right? It's very like
yeah. I really was thinking about it. I might have said it a minute ago, but I was watching it thinking he hasn't even raised his voice, which at least get him to shout at people because that's always brilliant. And then as I thought it, he did shout once, but that was the only time. Yeah.
You get excited. I'm not sure about you. I got excited at that moment. It's when he's decided he's going to kill the girl.
The witch.
They're transporting.
Exactly.
And
it's a great moment. You think he's going to go psycho. Yeah.
And there was so much opportunity at the end. Like if this was like some kind, if at the end he went full rage Cage, like
yeah, exactly.
If they kept the monks coming like the crazy 88 in like Kill Bill, like, because I don't know, it's quite lukewarm. That there's probably about 3 monks. Like,
and they're all really old men to begin with before they died. Now they've got with the plague. Now they're zombies. I mean, they're not gonna touch Cage. So yeah, no, he hasn't got the voice.
And then the last point is, and I'm quite I know going into this question I'm going to be disappointed because I know the answer. But do we get a Nick Cage freakout? Obviously, a man who is renowned for a real pot, like boil over in a film. I mean, like a pot really boiling over.
Yeah, his juicy freaks out. No, there isn't any of that, man. This is no. Does that mean that this is scored basically a 0 on the Cageometer of yours, hasn't it? Because surely the answers, I don't know, like you say, but the answer of good hair wants to be yes.
Normally, yeah. Like
you want that to be a yes, don't you? I mean, that's an attractive thing. I'm going to watch this movie with Nick Cage in. Has he got good hair in it? No. Well, maybe I won't watch it.
Well, normally, like it could be two things. It's either like the good hair is a sign that the film has budget. Do you know what I mean? It's like that thing of, you know when artists ask for ludicrous demands, like musicians, when like Elton John will be like, I want a pony painted pink in my dressing room before I play. It's known that is not a matter of he actually wants a pony, but it's like, if you have managed to go to the detail of reading my like checklist of things I want, and you've got that right, then I'm going to be at ease that you're going to look after me, and that like the technical specs we've sent through, that you've got all of that right. That the venue.
I understand that. So the good hair is that's a telling. Yeah,
it's a telling sign that the film's got the budget, like, because obviously his hair is going like a real low point in his career is the film Next. It is like a jumped up straight to straight to like TV movie that is
I haven't seen it.
And he has hair which has been parodied and memed, where it genuinely looks like he's got an eagle atop of his head.
Great stuff. I'm going to be looking at that. Would that be good hair or bad hair, though?
That's bad hair. It's bad.
That's bad hair.
It's really bad hair. It's really
right.
Bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then like this film isn't coming up for a while yet, but we look at something like Mandy just because it's fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
Not bad hair at all.
No.
Fucking fantastic movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool hair, really.
Yeah, cool hair.
Yeah.
Like,
I see where you're going with it, man.
The crazy voice as well. The crazy voice is normally a sign that we're getting at least like we're getting something, even if it's a glimmer of something, even if there's like, there will be moments where he pulls some line out of the bag that makes you, if you weren't paying attention, you go, whoa. What was that? Like, where's he gone with that? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you get a line from Cage that sounds like it's from another movie, you're like, oh, this is exciting.
Yeah.
Whereas this, I don't know. It's like he recorded his dialogue and then they turned it right down in the mix.
Yeah, it's tepid.
Before I let you go, Joe, I just wanted to talk about like there's one moment. I don't know why I want to talk about it, but there is a moment like of a sword fight between Robert Sheehan's character and Ron Perlman's character.
Yeah, I remember.
That in that moment, for me, like all I could think about, and this film does it a lot, it makes you think about other films. So for me in that moment, all I could think about was Monty Python and the Holy Grail. The Black Knight sequence.
Right, I know exactly what you mean. Man, that was such a bad moment of the film as well, because it went back to your sort of buddy cop thing as well. You've got like a kid who wants to join the gang.
Yeah.
You know, and he's like he's cussed the senior figure of the mob, and now he has to have a beating. I could. Man, what's the guy called from Misfits? I keep calling him Misfits guy.
Robert Sheehan.
Robert Sheehan, yeah, Robert Sheehan, man, bless him. That was Python-esque, wasn't it?
Yeah, and there's so many points where it does hearken to other films where you're like, oh. And I think if any film does that, unless it's like a knowing gag, like it is just a sign of like if you're reminded of Monty Python, you're like, I'd much rather be watching the Holy
Monty
Grail right now.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
or like I the last time I watched Buffy, I was like a prepubescent boy with like a problem for hard-ons at the most like irresponsible moments, and like I really fancied Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Who didn't when Buffy was out, man? Everyone did.
Of course, but like I haven't watched that since then, and like even like this film, I was going, oh, I'd rather be sticking on season 1, episode 1 box set right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure I really liked Buffy, definitely, and not just because of Sarah Michelle, but I actually did like it. I loved that shit, man. That was like,
I loved it, but like the fact that I'm being taken away.
You'd rather watch that now than Season of the Witch. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a recommendation. Don't watch Season of the Witch. Just watch Buffy season 1. Just...
Yeah, even watch the very bad Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie. Came out before. That like came out years before. Like not even with Sarah Michelle Gellar. Watch that. Like, and I hate to shit on films, but this one, like,
yeah.
I think the reason I feel disappointed is, as we've said, like throughout this, is there was so much potential for so much good.
Yeah.
In it.
Yeah. What have we learned about Cage in this film? What is it?
That around this time he was struggling, like money.
Right, that's it. Yeah.
Well, something I've learned a lot is just by looking at having the hiatus that I did on this podcast and coming back, is I was halfway through his discography, but I'd managed to get up to 2009. So in the space of 10 years, Nicolas Cage has released half of the films ever released.
That is pretty magnificent.
Yeah, we're talking about a man who is like close to a 30-year career.
He was really just having a lot of fun way back in the day, and now he's like, oh, I got to get to work. It is true, though. You know, didn't he say something along the lines of, when someone asked him why he does so many movies, did he reply in some way like, he said, well, I'm an actor, you know, no one has to go at football players when they play too many games, or something like that. I think he might have said something along those lines.
Yeah.
I might be wrong. And I kind of agree with him. But I mean, he's not a football player, he's an actor. So
I massively agree with him as well. And like, regardless of what his reasons are, whether they're financial or I guess you never know what is going to be a hit and what's going to be a miss. So it's better to spread your bets, and maybe you'll get a bit of a like return, as opposed to like not placing the bet at all and still going home not having had the risk and not having the win, or the like. Do you know what I mean?
In that sense, it's inspiring. In that sense, the film can be inspiring, and Cage is inspiring for it. Yeah,
a win and a lose both emit an emotion that like is some kind of joy in even when you like, even if you take that gamble and lose, it's still a rush. It's still a rush.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Because you know, like, it's probably like humbling for someone like Cage, in that he can do a real stinker of a movie, then it's like, the expectation's off.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're a Leonardo DiCaprio, like really, really like,
sure,
really like, do you know what I mean? Like testing out, I'm not going to do that. Like very, very picky about his choices. It's just, going to be racked with anxiety constantly, because you're going to be like, how can I live up to Django Unchained? I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to only work with like the top tier directors. Do you know what I mean? Like Leonardo DiCaprio has just pigeonholed himself in the fact that he can only work with Quentin Tarantino.
The elite.
Yeah. And Martin Scorsese, like, he's not really going to branch out unless somebody like resurrects Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and Cage is going out there putting bets down.
Like, I'm pretty sure if I could rustle up 10k,
Man, we should do it. We should do it. Come on.
the Kickstarter's going live now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I'm sure if like you've got a decent like that's why I like him. He's very much in the same ilk as Danny Trejo. Like they will say yes to anything, and sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. But when it pays off, it's good.
Oh yeah.
But when it doesn't, it's Season of the Witch.
But that's perfectly put, man. Perfectly put.
Well, Joe, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on the podcast. But before I let you go, you obviously host Tonight with Bob and Joe.
That's correct.
You guys have recently come out of a similar length hiatus.
Yeah, man. I mean, almost the same, really. Yeah.
With your second season of Tonight with Bob and Joe, could you please explain to people what this kind of new avenue of the podcast is? Yeah,
sure. Well, firstly, it's because the podcasting world isn't the same without you, Petros. We were out. But what our new season is about? It's called Bob and Joe's Infinite Pub Crawl. So it's what it sounds like. We wanted to drink in every single pub in Brighton. That was the goal, and so we tried to do it, and we took our mics out and we went to every single pub and we recorded, a bit in each one, maybe about half an hour, and each episode's probably got about 4 to 5 pubs in it. We've got about 12 episodes recorded so far.
Nice.
So yeah, that's what that is. It really is just me and Bob sat in the pub talking about the pub, probably, but generally, as you can imagine, by the end of the show, it's hard to tell what either of us are talking about, really. I mean, I listened back to it. I listened back to it the other day, and I was like, "Oh my god! Like, what is this stuff?" We've actually got another venture that we all spoke about once upon a time, called Do Your Best. You remember?
Yes. Bob. Many of you will remember Bob because he became somewhat of a stalwart on the Caged In podcast, being my right hand man at times when I needed a guest. Bob was like, Petros, he's got a Nicolas Cage film and he's got beer. I'll be there.
Absolutely.
Bob has told me very much about it.
Yes. So we're gonna we've realised that of course we can't do as much as we want. We can't go out into the woods really with a Scoutmaster and do like the more exciting camping styled badges, but we can do badges, indoors. There are other badges to get, things like the art badge or the community badge or the science badge.
So the Do Your Best podcast is an idea that all three of us have had kicking around.
That's right.
For very many years, which is a adult version of the Scouts, in which week to week we try and get the badges that is normally reserved for boys at the age of 12. But we're going to see if 3 men in their like late 20s to early 30s can manage to do that whilst consuming alcohol. And
that's exactly it. So
what would happen? Will it make us better people for society, or will we still be the reprobates we are?
I think both of those things it will do. I think it will make us better people. I mean, I looked at some of these, there's one called like the art badge, and I looked at that and I read it up, and it said you have to design and draw a character, do the front cover of your journal. And I thought, I actually haven't done these things before. I mean, I've drawn a lot of pictures or whatever, but I've never done these specific ones, and they do seem like the real basics. So I think there's something to it. And if you're willing to soon in the next few weeks, me, you and Bob will get together and get that damn art badge, man.
Perfect. Well, that's an exclusive here for all of you guys. Look out for Do Your Best. Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, it's been great, man. Yeah, it's been great to be here. Take care, man.
Well, wasn't that fantastic? Thanks again to Joe for being on the podcast and talking this film with me. So how did the anagram hunter do this week with his anagram? Well, I could very, very, very happily say that I would much rather be watching The Fast, Shy and Ice. I'm sure it would have been much more entertaining, funny and daring than this film. It kind of felt like a film that was made by committee, and maybe along the way there was something good in there, but all the rough edges got taken away and we got this kind of boiled, gloopy mess of a stew, as opposed to something that could have been great, especially with the talent we had on screen and the subject matter we were tackling. But it just fell a little bit flat. So you guys, join me next week when I will be talking to Todd Farmer, the writer and actor in Drive Angry. Nicolas Cage plays from what I know, a hell beast driver. And yeah, the writer has kindly agreed to come talk to me about it. So it'll kind of be a bit of a mishmash of an episode of a bit of me just kind of talking about the film, and then we'll cut to a little interview I'm going to have with him. So hope to see you next week. And as always, I've been Petros Patsilivus. You've been amazing. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. I've been caged in. I'm going to stay caged in. We're all going to stay caged in forever and ever and ever till the pandemic gets every last one of us.